On May 1979, the former special assistant to the deputy director of the CIA, Victor Marchetti, made the following shocking statement. "We have indeed been contacted, perhaps even visited, by extraterrestrial beings, and the U.S. government, in collusion with the other national powers of the Earth, is determined to keep this information from the general public." One big revelation hitting the mainstream right now is the fact that we are not alone, and that intelligent extraterrestrial life forms have been visiting our planet for a long time. As unbelievable as this may sound, it comes from the highest-ranking military personnel, academicians, intelligence agents, politicians, and private contractors from within the military-industrial complex. There are hundreds of these people who keep telling the world that we are being visited, and that governments around the world have had evidence that some of these UFOs witnessed by many people are indeed extraterrestrial visitors. The sources are the most credible in the world. The only issue is the topic. No matter how much evidence for a given phenomenon, and no matter how obvious its reality, if it goes against the human mind and what we are willing to accept, it is usually ignored or greeted with ridicule. Since the dawn of civilization, cultures from around the globe have constantly talked in their ancient texts about advanced beings flying in the sky and guiding humanity, yet we dismiss this completely. The ancients even went so far as to depict these beings in great detail, beings which are clearly very different than any human who ever walked on our planet, beings which are wearing technologically advanced spacesuits, much like the ones our astronauts use today. The ancients even depicted the flying vehicles they observed, yet we completely ignore all of these ancient texts, hieroglyphs, petroglyphs, and artifacts. If you don't believe the stories of the civilizations who lived thousands of years ago, perhaps you'll believe the stories of the people who lived 450 years ago. People who, just like many of our society, believed in nothing else but a bearded god living in the sky, completely excluding the possibility of otherworldly beings and advanced alien civilizations. The day was April 14th, and the year 1561. People from Nuremberg, modern Germany, left their homes to go about their everyday activities. But when they looked towards the sky, they saw something terrifying and unexplainable. They witnessed dozens of strange flying objects in the sky, flying above their city. It was a mass UFO sighting that was even recorded in the local newspaper. According to accounts written in the newspaper, some of the UFOs were definitely made out of some sort of metals, as people described them as flying gun barrels. Other objects were described as huge black spears, traveling at great speed across the sky. Reports say that the UFOs had several different shapes. Some of the objects were cylindrical in shape. Others were disc-shaped, and some looked like smaller spheres. The medieval people of Nuremberg interpreted this event as a sign of God. But if we look at this from a modern perspective, we can agree that this is one of the biggest UFO encounters from our recent history. And speaking of massive UFO encounters, we can't fail to mention the most recent one, the famous Phoenix Lights event, which happened on March 13, 1997. Thousands of people from the U.S. states of Arizona and Nevada and the Mexican state of Sonora witnessed a huge V-shaped craft flying over the night sky.
I got 4 of them. Major sighting here.
It is the most famous so-called UFO sighting in the world, the Phoenix Lights, and it happened right here in Arizona. Can you believe it's been 17 years?
Hard to believe, and it seems like each year something new emerges. Tonight, a new witness describes why she and thousands of others never grabbed a camera that memorable night.
Take a look at this.
To this day, there are only 4 known videos that capture what happened in the sky over the Phoenix area on March 13, 1997. Each one shows the same thing, a pattern of lights that blink on for a few minutes, then disappear from the night sky, but not from our memories.
I was never a watcher for UFOs. I've never gone outside and looked or telescoped.
Sue Watson knows those lights are only part of the story.
It came over the hump of the mountain. Evidently, what we saw that night was one of the biggest and most reported UFOs ever.
This brand new computer animation comes closer than ever before to explaining what Sue and hundreds, maybe thousands of others saw that night. It is from an upcoming film called Prescott Witness. Reports came in from all over Arizona, an enormous craft that flew over the entire state, north to south and back again, right over metropolitan Phoenix. Black as night, more silent than a whisper. Every witness describes it the same way.
This is the biggest. This is like a mall flying over my home. Seriously, and then when it flew over, it had these lights in front, and then it was totally illuminated underneath like a yellowish amber, and it was a total rounded boomerang.
But out of all those reports, not one person shot video of that craft. Not Sue or her 4 kids who watched it happen. All they have is her drawing.
I didn't want to stop watching it, and then by the time I got out with a camera, it passed our house, and we kept watching it over our roof and going south, and by the time I had the camera, it shot off.
I got 4 of them. Major sighting here.
And so we are left with these images, which the military and many others say are just flares used for target practice that night. But Sue and all those others know there's something more out there.
If I'd only had a camera.
Our entire history, ancient, medieval, and even modern history, is filled with UFO and alien encounters. Yet the topic of alien life still remains taboo. While the general public has been fascinated with UFOs for decades, our governments, scientists, and media have essentially declared that all UFO sightings are a result of weather phenomenon or human actions. None are actually extraterrestrial spacecraft, and no aliens have visited Earth. Essentially, we are told that the topic is nonsense. UFOs are off limits to serious scientific study and rational discussion, which unfortunately leaves the topic in the domain of fringe and pseudoscientists, many of whom litter the field with conspiracy theories and wild speculation. A great example is the famous Roswell crash. On the 8th of July, 1947, Roswell Army Airfield issued a press release stating that a flying disc had crashed on a ranch near Roswell during a powerful storm. Later in the day, as government scientists arrived in the area, the story appeared to change. A press conference was held, and it was stated instead that a weather balloon had crashed. Several people claimed to have seen debris scattered over a wide area, and at least one person reported seeing a blazing aircraft in the sky shortly before it crashed. But the key account came from a former mortician, Glenn Dennis, who claimed in 1989 that a nurse at the Roswell Army Airfield had accidentally walked into an examination room where doctors were bent over the bodies of 3 creatures. They apparently resembled humans, but with small bodies, spindly arms, and giant bald heads. There are many other cases of alien encounters silenced by the governments. UFO skepticism has become something of a religion with an agenda, discounting the possibility of extraterrestrials without scientific evidence, while often providing silly hypotheses describing only 1 or 2 aspects of UFO encounter, reinforcing the popular belief that there is a conspiracy. A scientist must consider all of the possible hypotheses that explain all of the data, and since little is known, the extraterrestrial hypothesis cannot yet be ruled out. In the end, the skeptics often do science a disservice by providing a poor example of how science is to be conducted. The fact is that many of these encounters, still a very small percentage of the total, defy conventional explanation. Since astronomers first started to observe the sky with their telescopes, there were thousands of UFO sightings, yet no one takes them seriously. In 1977, Peter Sturrock, a professor of space science and astrophysics at Stanford University, mailed 2,611 questionnaires about UFO sightings to members of the American Astronomical Society. He received 1,356 responses, from which 62 astronomers, around 5%, reported witnessing or recording inexplicable aerial phenomena. This rate is similar to the approximately 5% of UFO sightings that are never explained. As expected, Sturrock found that astronomers who witnessed UFOs were more likely to be night sky observers. Over 80% of Sturrock's respondents were willing to study the UFO phenomenon if there was a way to do so. More than half of them felt that the topic deserves to be studied, versus 20% who felt that it should not. What is more astonishing is that some of the most convincing observations have come from government officials. In 1997, the Chilean government formed the organization Comité de Estudios de Fenómenos Aéreos Anómalos, or CEFAA, to study UFOs. This is a declassified document describing a sighting of a UFO in December 1977 in Bahia, a state in northern Brazil. In 2014, CEFAA released footage of a UFO taken by a Navy helicopter of a mysterious craft. The countries of Brazil, Canada, Denmark, Ecuador, France, New Zealand, Russia, Sweden, and the United Kingdom have been declassifying their UFO files since 2008. And there are thousands of these documents which are open to the public. Yet, if you talk about UFOs and aliens, you will still be ridiculed. The French Committee for In-Depth Studies, or COMITA, was an unofficial UFO study group comprised of high-ranking scientists and military officials that studied UFOs in the late 1990s. They released the COMITA report, which summarized all of their most significant UFO findings. They concluded that 5% of the encounters were reliable yet inexplicable. Here's a quote from this document. The best hypothesis available was that the observed craft was extraterrestrial. They also accused the United States of covering up evidence of UFOs. Iran has been concerned about spherical UFOs observed near nuclear power facilities that they call CIA drones, which reportedly are about 30 feet in diameter, can achieve extraordinary speeds, and can leave the atmosphere. Such speeds are on par with the fastest experimental aircraft, but unthinkable for a sphere without lift surfaces or an obvious propulsion mechanism. And here's a 1948 top-secret United States Air Force document which reads, "For some time, we have been concerned by the recurring reports on flying saucers. They periodically continue to pop up during the last week. One was observed hovering over Nyberg Air Base for about 30 minutes. They have been reported by so many sources and from such a variety of places that we are convinced that they cannot be disregarded and must be explained on some basis which is perhaps slightly beyond the scope of our present intelligence thinking." In December 2017, the New York Times broke a story about the classified Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program, which was a $22 million program run by the former Pentagon official Luis Elizondo and aimed at studying UFOs. Elizondo resigned from running the program, protesting extreme secrecy and the lack of funding and support. Following his resignation, Elizondo, along with several others from the defense and intelligence community, were recruited by the To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science, which was recently founded by Tom DeLonge to study UFOs and interstellar travel. In conjunction with the launch of the Academy, the Pentagon declassified and released 3 videos of UFO encounters taken with forward-looking infrared cameras mounted on F-18 fighter jets.
Look at that thing, dude. That's not our LNS though, is it? It's not. That is the LNS, dude. Well, if there's like... Look at that thing! It's rotating.
While there is much excitement about such disclosures, I am reminded of a quote from retired Army Colonel John Alexander, who said, "Disclosure has happened. I've got stacks of generals, including Soviet generals, who've come out and said UFOs are real." My point is, how many times do senior officials need to come forward and say that this is real? There is a great deal of evidence that a small percentage of these UFO sightings are unidentified structured craft exhibiting flight capabilities beyond any known human technology. If there are indeed extraterrestrial craft visiting Earth, it would greatly benefit us to know about them, their nature, and their intent. Moreover, this would present a great opportunity for mankind, promising to expand and advance our knowledge and technology, as well as reshaping our understanding of our place in the universe. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and if you're new, hit subscribe and the bell next to it for future notifications.